Hello, everyone. My name is Jesus Guillen, and the first thing that I want to do is to invite you to keep telling your stories because storytelling is still so important to keep fighting against stigma and discrimination. The story of HIV and immigrants, I feel that it still hasn't been told directly because of so many issues and fears. So here we go. Just to tell you first a little story about this guy in 1984 who arrived to the United States hardly speaking English. And he arrived here because he was trying to follow his dreams. He was 24 years old, really. I want to say, like I tell many people, he was fresh meat in some way because he wanted to keep exploring his sexuality, his life, his art, and everything else. So you can imagine precisely someone that arrived in this country, and somehow I was able to come here with no legal papers. Somehow when we pass the border, the lady simply say, keep passing, keep going. So this guy, after going only for a few months to school, sometimes after school at night, he will walk those dark streets, and his sexuality in the heat of the Los Angeles city, just flourishing. So seeing sometimes the men in the windows and everything, things happen, but life keeps going. And then somehow life was good, and he was able to keep fulfilling his dreams in theater and radio and different things. And he even got his membership of the theater or in organizations and groups. And he kept going. And then he was able to do these theater tours around the country. And one night, he happened to have his roommate of this handsome man that he thought he was the most handsome man that he could see. And that night, sex happened. It was the year later on the 1984, 1985, for whatever reason. And, I was not having much sex with anybody else. And a few months after that sexual encounter, I went to somewhere that they were doing these studies about this weird disease that was happening in many gay people. And just out of the cold in this office, I was simply told, you are positive to this test. I felt like at this incredibly cold shower. I didn't even know how to react. Again, it was the beginning by now. I think it was the beginning of 1985. Again, hardly speaking English. I just got a job in a fast food place after having a job with the government in Mexico. My family didn't know that I was gay. I didn't have a community that will support me in any possible way. And I was living with an aunt and a cousin. So I simply kept this new information that was telling me, you might die soon. I kept it really deep into my heart. About a year passed by, and it was 1986, and this incredibly handsome man that had sex with me that night in 1985, he died. And then I knew exactly what happened and where and how. It was in those days really a death sentence, not only because we were seeing all these people around us dying, but it's also in our brains and in our minds. And imagine again, someone that just arrived from another country, that hardly speak the language, that doesn't know how things work, and somebody tells you you might die, and then the person that you had sex died. I knew exactly how and where. Sometimes people ask me if I hated that guy, and it's like, why? Many times I don't even know exactly he knew exactly what happened to him, you know? So life kept going, and I kept trying to somehow just live my life. And in 1987, amnesty came to be. And it was the first time that they had an amnesty program for people that has been in the United States, in this country, for a while. What is very interesting, guys and girls and friends from everywhere, is that 1987 was also the year that the ban against people that they were HIV positive, that they could not immigrate to this country. Even if I became HIV positive in this country, I couldn't immigrate. But the amnesty program was there, just in my hands. Now I'm a citizen of this country, and I can tell this story. And I like to think that I have done always every day remind myself of this good for everybody else, because I have to do what I have to do to survive. I really believe if I didn't do this, I will be dead. I really believe that if I was going back in Mexico in those days, I would not be here telling this story. So nobody knew that I was HIV positive. Only, again, a few friends and some people knew that I was gay. So I decided to tell this very good friend of mine what happened. And in these days, the way that things were done, it was they will take your blood test, and it was anonymous, and they will give you a number. So first, I have to tell my friend what happened. This is what happened. I went to this thing, and I know that I was now positive to this virus that was killing everyone around. So I asked him, knowing that he was taking a risk, knowing that this was a risk for everyone, I asked him if he could test, if he could do the test for me, because I needed to keep going. I needed to survive. I needed to stay in this country in order to live. And I did. And he just looked at me and he said yes. So he did this for me. He did the test. And I was able then to proceed and do my permanent residency. Life has been, I think, incredibly good to me, because sometimes incredible things happen again. And many of the immigrants to arrive to any country, doesn't matter where, if we don't have the papers, the legal papers, we're always afraid to try to do something for our health, to go to the doctors, to really create some kind of safety in our life, because we believe that the next day they're gonna take us to, to our countries or to prison. I waited again until the last day to really submit all my paperwork and things, and with the fear not only that something will happen to me, but also to my friend. So I received the news, and they say that I was ready to go and do my exam and to know about my life, and I had all kinds of papers by now in 1987. Remember, guys, again, that this was the year that the ban against HIV positive people started. Do you guys know that this ban was lifted until the year 2010? Durante all this time, they were not allowing people that they were HIV. Even if it happened to me again in this country, we were not allowed to do that. So finally, you guys will not believe that, again, I had my date that it was already put right there for me to go and do my immigration papers, and I was very excited and nervous, but I already had my blood test, I should be feeling better, right? But I still was very nervous. So the date arrived, and I'm taking the bus because I didn't have a car. In Los Angeles, you don't have a car? Yes, I didn't have a car. So I took the bus, and I had all my folder with my papers on my hand. And so I just went there. And suddenly I realized that I was at the other side of town, completely at the other side of town, and that my test was in the other side of town. Hello. So I get out of the bus, and I don't know how. And in any country that you are listening to me for real, and you can laugh about it, I simply just stop. And I look at the car that was passing by, and I just asked him in that moment that he was passing by. I was like, I need to do my test for immigration, and if I'm not there in 15 minutes, I will lose this. How does someone is gonna give you a ride, someone that you don't know, in the street just because you say something like that? Somehow the universe, my ancestors, my grandmother, my spirits, God, everything that it is, allow me to this guy again to stop by and take me to the immigration office. Those are the things that immigrants we got to every day, many times with one thing or another. So I got there, and I did notice also this family that was somehow still a lot behind in their English, and they seem a lot more I don't know, like socioeconomical, sometimes maybe even less than what I had. And I noticed how more of a difficult time they were giving to them. And this is another aspect of the picture. Many times, as an immigrant and in health issues, that's what many people don't go to their doctors, because the stigma and discrimination against exists in many different levels. If you are gay, if you look like you are poorer, like you have less money, if you look like you don't know what you're doing, I don't know, the color of your skin, the race, everything is part of the picture. So many isms. But I did my paperwork, and everything happened in some way, and life kept going. I was just waiting for my papers, and finally I got my residency in this country, in the United States. This is the steps that we usually do, right? We will take the residency, and then after that, it can become the citizenship. So I kept having my life as much as I could, and somehow, again, the fact of being HIV positive, it was there. About 5 years later, maybe because nobody again was knowing of what was happening inside me, and when you don't have anybody to talk to, when your family does not know what's going on, when we don't have a community support, that even in these days, when somebody asks me, when shall you have a therapist after you know that you're HIV positive, I will say next day, because many of us, we have no connection and nobody else to tell them, I am afraid that I might die tomorrow and nobody will know. So about 5 years from when I became a resident of this country, I was having a job, going to work and everything. And suddenly I started to lose my hair completely. It was such a horrible thing that alopecia, it sounds like a simple thing, but it's so complicated because when the stress is so much in yourself, your body reacts. And I started to lose my hair, and not even the doctor that I was seeing then, by now I will have a doctor, knew that I was HIV positive. So the doctor say, I'm gonna send you to this specialist, and you might still lose your hair. So we're gonna put these chemicals in your head, but remember, just be positive, but you might still lose your hair. I knew exactly what was going with me. I knew that the stress was just so incredible that it was burning myself inside. It was everything together, right? I was away from my family. By then, I have no family anymore here because my aunt had died. I was working at night, just trying to have a life and try to keep pursuing my dreams. And when I say that again, many people think everybody comes to this country for money. Many people sometimes move to other countries to fulfill their dreams, to keep helping others, to keep helping their family. A reminder to many of the people that sometimes work on the kitchens or driving cars or many other things. Sometimes there are people that they are doctors or engineers and they speak 3 languages and many of these things. But sometimes we forget these elements, right? So I was so stressed out, but I knew what was happening to me that I left that place and I told myself, I'm gonna take care of things. And I remember that philosophical words that they say that whatever you can take care of, you can take care of those things, and whatever is not, just to learn to see the difference. So next year, my hair started to come back, and the doctor was like, "You're wearing a wig, right? You're wearing a wig." And I say, "No, it is my hair." I kept going and again, and I did some amazing things, no doubt. It, it has been an amazing journey. But somehow, again, we have to remember that even if we take medicines, our bodies still are, fragile in many other ways. Especially, again, what is now called an HIV long-term survivor. Then there are different definitions, of course, because I happen to be the founder of the HIV long-term survivors international network. We have like 5,000 people, and there's always a talk about this, even in these days. But the basic definition is that before 1996, because in 1996 was when the famous cocktail of medicines was discovered that make a huge difference in people's lives. Before that, sadly, many people, were killed by the medicines itself, AZT and other things like that. It was very obvious sometimes to see in our communities, KS, Kaposi sarcoma, those spots in your body that I had it myself. The hump, this part of the body of a person that will become bigger. You will go to the gyms and you will see, let's speak frankly, you will see the butt of the guys completely plain like there was nothing there. And then everybody will know you're taking ACT. But 1996, again, it became this huge line that make a huge difference for many people's lives. In our group, I never, never, never try to discriminate against someone. And we ask people, why did you want to become part of this group? And most of the people has been with HIV 25, 30, or in my case, next year, it will be my 40th year anniversary. So this is very important, again, just because even in these days, we're still fighting for the rights of many people that they are living with HIV for a long, long time. Mental health issues is one of the main things that we've been fighting about, not only because we saw many people dying, but also because many of us, had been really close to dying. I get very emotional many times when I start talking about this, because I was just mentioning just before this a little bit to someone, this past December was my 5th time that I was very close to dying for real. It's one of those moments that you feel this must be the last time that I'm here with you guys. But I'm here somehow, and I keep telling the story. So I wanna say that besides that, I'm one of the many people with HIV that also had cancer. So I am a 12 years cancer survivor. Many of us, we had lymphomas and many things like that. But it's very, very important for me, before I give you just a little bit of all the information about immigrants around the world, to tell you that please, to anyone that is newly diagnosed with HIV, to anyone that works in agencies and organizations and is around the world, not only about the story of HIV and immigrants, and please write to me or write to the conference itself and tell them your stories and tell them why this is necessary and this is not. Because we are here for the first time, generations growing older with HIV. And this is a magical thing. When many people contact any of us that we've been with HIV for this amount of time, many times we talk to people in Africa, in other small towns, even small towns in the USA. And then it's almost like they don't hear the amount. You mean what? Next year, you're going to be 40 years with HIV? It's not possible, because they still see in many places people dying with HIV. So we might sound like a magical fairy, but we are humans. And many of us, we suffer every day of the mental health aspects of this constant stigma and discrimination, because sadly, it's still here. Sadly, in any dating website, they know that when they see, would you date an HIV positive person, many people say no. And it still hurts. And I have anxiety, and I have PTSD, and I have many brothers and sisters that have depression, and they feel, especially after what happened with COVID, how isolated and lonely it feels. And this is what we're telling the story right now about HIV and immigrants. Because with what happened with COVID just these past few years, sadly, the problem once again happened when they were asking for people to go and vaccinate themselves. It took us some time to really fight for that. They will not be asking you for an identification or for certain papers, because health is priority. A virus does not recognize if you have papers or not, or if you are legal or not. So finally, they were not asking for an ID when they were vaccinated for COVID. We don't want this to happen, in the next years again. We want health to be the priority of things. We understand the legality of issues and borders and geographical elements, but we should be human. And that's one of the most important things. I have to remind you also, everyone, that when you immigrate, when you arrive to another country, imagine once again the whole cultural shock, everything that is a shock in your system. And then if for whatever reason they didn't tell you anything about your health, that it might put you at risk, or you are still hiding your sexuality, or you are simply discovering your sexuality about being a member of the LGBTQI family, that that someone still protect you or will hold you or will be there for you, and you will have someone to talk to. That will be the perfect world. And that's what we want. Because sadly, in the last years, family, many of the elements anti-immigrants in this country, in the United States, every time that there are elections, immigrants, we become the enemy. And we are not the enemy. We are just people, again, trying to fulfill our dreams. And now, as a citizen, I want to and I have to keep speaking in the name of everyone else. So, for the health and well being of everybody else, please join me in this fight against stigma and discrimination. I want to mention that still in the world, we have around, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's about still 28 countries that still have problems. If you visit them, if you are not even traveling, but I mean like immigrating there, but even visiting, they still have problems if you are HIV positive. I always tell my brothers and sister and my family in social media and everywhere that safety is priority. And sadly, some countries in Africa, lately we had the news precisely, as you should know and might know by now, that if they find someone having gay sex, they will take them to prison. But if one of the people is happened to be HIV positive, it's a death sentence. That if they find medicines in still many of these countries that they are for HIV, it doesn't matter if they are for you or for somebody else, that they will deny you arrival to that country, or if they find out later on, they will deport you. Safety is priority. This is just a little bit of my story. But every story is important. I want to finish this recording, this opportunity that it was given to me, just to remind you that many of us, including women still, that they are seen as lesser things in the world, that in my country, Mexico, there's still a lot of killings of women at this moment as if they were objects, that our trans community, it keeps being killed and abused every day, that our people with disabilities have so many things still to work for in society. And now, again, all the ones getting older, now we're getting and encountering ageism. It's time. It's time to start embracing all our differences and to really help each other better. The HIV community, the HIV umbrella, started to help others in the beginning by many people that knew somebody needed the plate of soup, that somebody needed somebody to be talking to, that somebody needed a hug or someone to be there. Let's do that again. Let's desinstitutionalize all these things and become humans again. And the immigrants, we are part of the story. My name is Jesus Guillen, and I'm sending you a lot of healing energy for this city of San Francisco that has become this place of hope for so many others. But it doesn't matter where you are. Again, let's keep helping each other. I do believe in that. And thank you very much to the International AIDS Conference for giving me this opportunity, and love and kisses forever. Jesus Guillen from San Francisco.